Rugby is a full-contact team sport that originated in England in the 19th century. Looking from the outside, you will notice its striking similarity to Qazaq national game Kokpar. However, in the English version, players do not ride horses, but run across the field. In today's episode, we will talk about the Turkic cavalry, not the British infantry. Hello, dear admirers of Qazaq national sports, who sincerely worry about athletes who devote their soul and heart to playing Kokpar. Toy is for poets. Kokpar is for heroes. Qazaq folk wisdom.
Kokpar oyunu бүгінгі таңда 6 құрлықта арасқан. Қанатын кең.
Nowadays, Kokpar and its varieties have spread across 5 continents. As a proof, I will share an interesting fact with you. Kokpar is played even in the world's leading economic country, in the US. Kokpar communities are located in the US cities of Bozeman in Montana State and Jackson, Wyoming. Nowhere else has as many cowboys as Wyoming, where children from an early age ride on horseback and take part in rodeos. Therefore, it is not surprising that Kokpar is popular in the US. Kokpar is a very dangerous sport. It requires not only the strength and courage of the horse, but the skill and agility of the rider. There are several versions of origin of this equestrian sport. It makes no sense to review each of them separately. If think logically, it becomes clear that Kokpar originated when the Turks mounted their horses. Kazakhs are believed to start playing Kokpar when the Turkic civilization originated. According to Kazakh distinguished teacher Auganbay Kaliuli, the word Kokpar came from a combination of 2 Turkic words, kok, blue-gray or blue, and bori, a wolf. The Turkic Khaganate has its own special troops, the Kagan Guard called boriler, wolves, a group of warriors, Kazakh Batirs, who were especially trained for fighting. To play Kokpar does not mean fighting for the carcass of the wolf. This means to win like the wolf. Initially, carcasses of different animals were used during the competition, but over time, players started to compete for the carcass of a headless goat sirke. Its skin is more durable and can be torn during tough fight. There are several varieties of Kokpar: Lak Kokpar, Kokpar with a baby goat, Sirke Kokpar, Kokpar with a goat, and Tana Kokpar, Kokpar with a calf carcass.
Ешкі көкпар тартудың бір құралына айланды. Ешкіде қандай артықшылықтар бар? Ешкінің ең басты терісі мықты болады. Ешкінің терісі өте мықты болады. Қойдың терісіне қарағанда ешкінің терісі мықты болады.
The goat carcass was chosen for a reason. What is its advantage? Firstly, the goat has a strong skin. There is no sagging. Rolled hair, the wool itself is thick and tough, and the carcass is relatively small. At the end of Kokpar, the meat of the goat, which serves as the main object of the game, is eaten. Riders are not hungry, but the goat's meat, which has been touched by dozens of hands during the competition, is believed to have healing properties. At the very least, this is a great occasion for conversation and a pleasant time.
Ауруға шипа деген бізге сондай бір түсінік қалыптасқан.
Біздің ата-бабаларымыз үлкен қалаларда отырып, сол кезде көбісі сарттар
Our ancestors lived in large cities, which at that time were inhabited mainly by Sarts, the settled population of Central Asia, mainly Uzbeks and Tajiks. But it was our ancestors who were sultans and beys there and ruled these cities. They, of course, missed the steppe Kokpar and gathered residents of neighboring villages and nearby regions for competitions. Mostly they played with a goat carcass. Sometimes the carcass of the calf was also used, but never played with the carcass of the grey wolf. Representatives of the Konera tribes, Naimans, Adais, and others were invited to the competition. The Sultan gave out cash prizes to the winners of each round. This is where the monetary reward for each game, or salim, originated from. When the Khan came to the competition, he was immediately invited to a meal, and the last stage of Kokpar, Ogizoldi, or Dead Bull, was announced. This stage ended with a pursuit race when each of the participants tried to gallop away with a goat carcass to his village. The term Ogizoldi has been preserved to this day, but few know where it came from. Why is the third game or salim called a dead bull? Because many rituals were associated with bulls, usually meant the ending of something. For example, after a long dispute, both sides cut off the bull's tail, marking that all the disputes were resolved. That is, the game of Kokpar for Kazakhs is not just a sport, it is a national game based on traditions. Our people skillfully use the game played by the skilled horsemen in their lives. Kokpar, once a military training game, has become one of the most prestigious games held during the festivities. Athletes who came from different villages to play Kokpar tried to give the trophy goat carcass to one of their fellow countrymen, and for a reason. The goat meat could be given to a family that was in a difficult situation. The list of such people in need also included families with no children and newlyweds. In case of injury or death during Kokpar, it was inappropriate to retaliate or seek compensation.
Қазіргі кезде мысалы Kokparda жаңағы жаппай Kokparda көбісі дүние үшін шабады. Жаппай Kokpar негізінде ол Kokpar өзі ол
Many people are taking part in the mass Kokpar only for money. In theory, it is wrong. The athlete must fight and defend the honor of his village. Any child, the son of the great steppe, mounts a horse, first of all, to show his strength. All this needs to be revived and passed down to youth. The athlete must fight not for money, but for honor and title.
Қайтадан жаңарту керекпіз, қайтадан өзіміздің жастарымызға түсіндіру керекпіз. Әр палуан намысын шабу керек. Адал болып, ешқандай арамдық жасамай шабу керек.
Европада көкпарға ұқсас хорс болады.
In Europe, there has long been a kind of equestrian sport called horseball. The sport is like a combination of polo, rugby, and basketball. It turns out that not only Turkic peoples, but also Europeans and Americans played their own version of Kokpar. Although Kokpar is a common game for all Turks, each nation has its own special rules of this competition. Let's closely review the Uzbek game Ulak Kupkari, the Tajik Buzkashi, the Kyrgyz Lak Tartish, and the Afghan game Buzavish. The Uzbeks have long considered Kokpar as their national game. The most popular time to play Kokpar in Uzbekistan is from autumn to spring. Horses can gallop in the heat. Kokpar in Uzbek is called Kupkari or Ulak Kupkari. Koop is translated from Uzbek as many, much, and the word kari means business or work. That is literally the work of many people. The athletes are called chavandaz, in some regions polvon. The Uzbek Kokpar also implies the game with the goat carcass. In general, we can say that Kokpar has its own characteristics in each region of Uzbekistan. There is another interesting fact about Kokpar among our brotherly people. Chavandaz athletes sometimes use a specially made hook to quickly lift the goat carcass from the ground. Now, let's see how Tajiks play Kokpar. Tajik Kokpar is played in the steppe. It is very similar to the Japai Kokpar or mass Kokpar in Kazakhstan. Tajiks call this game buzkashi. Buz means a goat, kashi means to pull or to drag. Participants of Kokpar in Tajikistan are called chapandaz. According to the ancient sources, the word buzkashi used to have a completely different meaning. During hostilities, the word meant to break through the encirclement of the enemy. The peculiarity of the Tajik Kokpar is that the limbs of the goat carcass are not cut off. All four legs are left so that it is more convenient to grab them. Another feature of the Tajik Kokpar is that the rider, who is lucky to first reach the goat's carcass, doesn't hold it with his hands, but presses it firmly behind the horse's side with his leg. An incision of 5 centimeters is made on the leg muscles of the goat's carcass in order the rider can stick the kamshi there and hold the prey. And now, let's review how our Kyrgyz brothers play Kokpar. The Kyrgyz call Kokpar lak tartish, the fight for the goat, or kokboru. Usually the competition is held during major holidays. This is a long tradition. In some regions, a calf carcass is used in the game, while in others the mass Kokpar is more popular. The Kyrgyz call the game as alamanulak. In Afghanistan, people call Kokpar as buzavish. It also has its own characteristics. In Afghanistan, the rider throws the forelegs of the goat carcass across the saddle and presses the carcass beside the horse's side with his right leg. Another peculiarity is that Afghans slaughter a 1-year-old bull and then draw a circle with a diameter of 5 to 7 meters. And the bravest rider lifts the carcass from the circle and rides 200-250 meters. In the 21st century, in the era of advanced technologies, it will be absolutely easy to talk through social media and discuss some important issues with a person from a distant country. Our team also decided not to miss this opportunity and contacted the veteran of the game, Kokboru, in order to find out more information about this game. Hello, Nurmambet. Hello, Akjol. I'm fine. I am Nurmambet Koishikeyev. I send my heartfelt greetings to Kazakhstan. Can I ask you, what are the fundamental differences between Kazakhs and Kyrgyz in the game of Kokboru? There are very few differences between the Kazakhs and Kyrgyz games. Kazakhs in the game Kokpar often throw the carcass of the goat into kazandik, a cauldron by the joint efforts of the team. It is a real fight for the serke. But in the Kyrgyz game, on the other hand, each rider tries to throw the goat carcass into the kazandik independently. We also have a lot of trained stallions. The riders can either throw the goat across the saddle or press it against the horse's side and gallop to the kazandik. I have one more question. What types of Kokpar have been preserved to this day? It's no secret that the Kyrgyz people are also very fond of this sport. We have such types as Jer Ulak, which doesn't involve usual kazandik, and instead of it, we draw a circle on the ground. Each team has 3 players, and there can be hundreds of teams. There is also a well-known Alaman Ulak, Its difference is that there are no restrictions on the age and number of players. It's similar to the Qazaq game Japay Kokpar. Hungarians who consider themselves descendants of the Turks who migrated to Europe from the ancient Kipchak steppes also mastered Kokpar. Magyars is the nation that strives to develop ethno-sports. In 1996, representatives of national sports from 23 countries took part in the first World Festival in Kecskemét, dedicated to 1,100th anniversary of Hungarian nationhood. However, Hungarian athletes have been participating in official competitions since 2014. A foal will reach maturity and a horse will achieve excellence. Qazaq folk wisdom.
Тарихшылар ат спортын ежелгі Грециямен байланыстырады.
Historians believe that equestrian sport originated in Greece and chariot races were the first equestrian event. According to some sources, equestrian sport reached a professional level in Italy in the 19th century when the first equestrian schools were opened in Naples, Versailles, and Madrid. In the 18th, 19th centuries, upper-class members, aristocrats, in addition to learning etiquette, acquiring the art of fencing and having a musical education, were required to master the skill of horseback riding. Well, let's return to the Qazaq land. And then we find out that riding a horse and galloping like the wind is not only a matter of the aristocracy, but the entertainment of any 6-year-old child in the Qazaq steppe. As for Greece and Italy, let me ask you, where is their regional source, which became the basis for a huge industry and modern horse breeding? Why am I asking this? Because today, equestrian sport has received an incredible impetus, and the Qazaq steppe is the historical source of this drive.
Ол негізінде мен Kokparға сырттан келген адаммын. Мен қалада өстім. Өзім баскетбол ойнадым. 10 жылдай баскетбол ойнадым.
I have been playing basketball for about 10 years. When I learned to ride a horse, I immediately became interested in Kokpar, but I never thought that I would play it. Now I play Kokpar at my own level. That is, I play amateur Kokpar.
Ауызқой Kokpar дейміз ғой. Kokpar негізінде әр қазаққа менімше ол міндет. Әр қазақ Kokpar тарту керек. Жаңағы сол кезде біз әлі қазақ болып қала береміз.
Every Qazaq should be able to play Kokpar. Only then he will remain a Qazaq. Because when our ancestors proudly said that we are Kazakhs, it had a deep meaning.
Қазақ деген адал болу керек. Қазақ деген мықты болу керек. Қазақ деген иманды болу керек. Соның ішінде бірақ
Kazakhs must be honest, strong, and loyal. But unfortunately, people nowadays are losing these qualities. Firstly, we must follow Islam, and secondly, we must always ride a horse. Our people have always been on horseback. We must not forget about this. When you play Kokpar, you feel the spirit of struggle. You feel like a real Qazaq. It is very important.
Тартыс, дода, соны сезген кезде сен өзіңді қазақ болып сезілесің.
In 1949, the rules of Kokpar competition were approved officially. According to these rules, the contestants were divided into 2 teams. In 1958, it was decided to hold the competition at the racetracks. Kokpar is well developed in the south of the country, in Jambul, Turkestan, and Almaty regions, as well as in western Kazakhstan. Kokpar in Kazakhstan is divided into mass and team games. Under the new rules, each team consists of 12 field riders. Presently, the Kokpar Championship is held annually. This year, athletes from Taraz and Shymkent competed in Kokpar.
Негізі Kokpar жақсы дамыған сол. Қазір бұрын оңтүстік Қазақстан, қазіргі Түркістан облысы, Шымкент.
In fact, Kokpar is well developed in the former South Kazakhstan region, now Turkestan region. It is also well developed in Jambul region. Now this sport is becoming popular in other cities as well. Most of the riders come from these regions.
Енді жалпы бұл көкпар не үшін керек? Көкпар не үшін керек дегенде, мысалы бір
In general, why do we need Kokpar? For example, each nationality has its own unique traits, behaviors, and attitudes, especially in lifestyle and sports. Kokpar is a symbol of the Qazaq people. It symbolizes our national mentality, which has existed for centuries.
Ұзақ жылдардан бері қарай келе жатқан біздің бұл ұлттық менталитетіміз, бұлай ұлттық қасиетіміз.
As for the mass Kokpar, it is a very popular and well-developed national sport, especially in southern Kazakhstan. It has no restrictions on the number or age of participants, but it has its own unwritten rules and laws. The major tournaments are held from October to May. In fact, any player who takes part in the mass Kokpar can participate in team competitions as well. However, there is one tiny little issue. The team recruits the smartest, skilled, and most prudent players who create fierce struggle. Of course, this does not mean that absolutely anyone can play mass Kokpar, and this is a field for simpletons. On the contrary, mass Kokpar is a sport that is uncompromising and uncontrolled in most cases, and it is played only by courageous athletes, strong with both hands and heart, who don't shy away from a real struggle. The athletes in Japai Kokpar or mass Kokpar do teams of two. A lot of people are participating. The pressure and tension during the struggle are simply incredible. Japai Kokpar has its own varieties, Toy Kokpar and Bata Kokpar. The Bata Kokpar involves from 50 to 100 horses, while Toy Kokpar takes much more horses. In Japai Kokpar, if you picked up the goat carcass from the ground and you have a fast horse, then in most cases opponents will not be able to resist you. But if your horse is weak, then your opponent with a strong horse can lead you out of the circle by the bridle. Team Kokpar has a slightly different philosophy. You lift the cirque carcass from the ground, press it with your leg against the horse's side. Your only task is to throw the goat carcass into the kazandik. That's all. And the task of your teammates is to protect you. They can protect you by ramming the opponent's horses or besiege them. In general, the Team Kokpar represents real competitions, real sports. A good stallion protects his herd from the attacks of wolves. A brave horseman defends his village from robbers. Kazakh folk wisdom. Dear viewers, in your opinion, how much does it cost to buy a good horse for Kokpar? Many of you will answer without hesitation 3-4 million tenge. But believe me, the cost of horses for the Kokpar game ranges from 15 to 20 million tenge. Why is it so expensive? You will get the answer to this question when you get to know the mass Kokpar, which sometimes involves from 1,000 to 2,000 riders. First, let's know the characteristics of a horse for Kokpar. Remembering the last episode, our Karabayers are best suited for competitions. Not all, but the best breeds. A special breeding work is carried out to select horses for Kokpar. Why? Because Kokpar is a very dangerous sport. We mentioned this earlier. Traditionally, the regional authentic Kokpar is the mass Kokpar. There are no rules in this Kokpar. The main purpose of this type of Kokpar is to deliver the goat carcass to a designated place at the finish line in the form of a circle. There are no restrictions on the number and age of participants in the mass Kokpar. In the south, where the mass Kokpar is popular, at least 200 to 300 riders take part in the competition. The riders during the game form a kind of circle with a funnel in the center. Only the strongest rider and his strong horse can withstand such physical pressure.
Қауіпті жағдайлар болды.
At practice, when I usually pick up the goat from the ground, my horse rushes off like a shot. Then one day, I bent down for the goat, and at that moment, the horse rushed forward. As a result, I hit the horse of another rider who was moving in the opposite direction. I hit the back of my head pretty hard and lost consciousness for 10 seconds. When I opened my eyes, the goat carcass was on one side of the field and I was lying in the other. Such dangerous situations may happen. The rider who grabs the goat carcass becomes the center of the struggle when the tension reaches its peak. At this point, your horse should be cold-hearted and calm, not nervous. Otherwise, it simply cannot stand the game by the middle of the competition. The horse should not kick, bite other horses, and even more so, suddenly rear up. In addition, the horse must have a strong heart and healthy lungs so as not to suffocate in the midst of the struggle and during races. In the middle of the battle, the riders are so crowded that there is literally no space, so the horse's hooves must be strong and molded so that in contact with other horses, they remain safe and sound. The horse's legs must support a lot of weight because when all the riders try to reach the goat carcass in the center, they begin to move in a tight ring clockwise, almost falling all over each other.
Шабандоз бен аттың қарым-қатынасы өте бір-біріне жақын, тығыз болу керек. Ол жерде енді көбінесе 50% атқа болса, 50% шабандозға бір-бірін түсіне білу керек.
The rider and the horse must understand each other. Any victory in Kokpar is equally the merit of the rider as well as the merit of his horse. If the horse and the rider do not understand each other, then there is no need to expect success. And if the rider forms good relationship with his horse, then his team will certainly win. What a horse for a team Kokpar should be. First, the horse must be fast and easy to ride. Follow the commands faithfully so as not to leave the field. Secondly, the horse must start briskly from the spot and be fearless if it sees the opponent's horse, which is going to ram it.
Ат деген бір-бірін келген кезде қорқпай соғу керек. Жүректі ат керек.
A lone horse has many advantages. A lone horseman has many tricks. Qazaq folk wisdom. What should a Kokpar horse look like? It should have wide nostrils and large eyes, a refined, wide and large head, ears as thin as reeds. The neck of the perfect Kokpar horse is thick, short and rises clearly vertically above the chest. The withers are high and short at the waist. The hips should be so wide that the front of the horse is not visible from behind. A distinguished feature of a good horse is flat, board-like shoulders, wide and even from withers to chest. The belly and back should also be flat. A fine horse has cast hooves, strong tendons, and massive hind legs. In the 30-minute episode, we found out how Kokpar is played in other countries. We wanted to finally answer the question, what Kokpar is. So, what is Kokpar? The Kazakhs have always been fighting only on horseback. Kokpar is a national game, and that reminds us of our ancestors who defended our great steppe. We cherish and love the game with all our heart and soul. It is spectacular and unpredictable. The mass Kokpar is the peak of the national sport. Kokpar is our history, ethnography, and national identity. The Team Kokpar is an attempt to give these competitions the status of a sports game, but at the same time, these competitions are gradually losing their ethnic character. In addition, the Kokpar Youth League (JKL) was opened with the aim to raise the interest of young people in this game. This is also an indicator of development and growing popularity of Kokpar. I will tell you about this in the next episode. I am Akjol Taukan. Watch us on Qazaq TV's YouTube channel and leave comments.